ever been wandering through a digital scrapbooking gallery and just come across a layout that just made you really want to take a closer look? Well, that's what happened to me the other day when I was looking at my designer gallery at O-Scraps. Let me navigate to this while I'm talking to you here. There's a bunch of really, really lovely layouts that deserve a lot of time to take your time and look through. But one of them just was so different that it really grabbed my attention. I wanted to take a closer look. It's this one here by Evelyn. Here, let me get this up here for you. Not only did she have a lot of elements very artfully arranged around this circle here with her great photographs, that's stunning in and of itself. But I thought this use of this cutout circle was really different. It really, even though it's in the background, it really did sort of help give your eye a place to rest and then sort of lead you down to her photos. Now, all of Evelyn's layouts are just really wonderful. I thought this one was especially creative. I just really wanted to take a closer look, and I thought you might be interested in this too. So let's hop over into Photoshop. I'll share my screen, and let's see if we can figure out what she's done and then see how we can recreate this. Let's take a look. Evelyn was sweet enough to send me her Photoshop document so that we could take a closer look and figure out what she's done here. I just wanted to point out again how really nicely arranged this circle really lent itself to sort of piling on all these elements in this very creative way, but still allows some space, some place for your eye to rest. Because when you have a very busy page, it's really important that there is some place the eye can go to sort of take a little breather from it. And in this case, it actually serves not only as a resting place, but sort of forces you down to look at the rest of the page, which has got all of her cute photos nestled in here amongst all these elements. So let's take a look and figure out what it looks like, because at first glance to me it looked like she has cut a hole out of this background paper. But what sort of confused me a little bit was because there's this little border here. Let me zoom in. Maybe you can see this border. Oops, that's really zoomed in. This border here, and I was wondering really how she accomplished that. Zoom back out again for you. So let's take a look. I went ahead and grouped all of her elements so we can sort of hide them and take a look at what's really going on here. So let me hide this first group of elements. It really is the bulk of the elements on her page. Then she has another group here, these elements in the center, and then this one element here peeking out on the side. So, well, when I looked at this, I realized, wow, this is not at all what I thought it was. Here's her background paper. It's here. It's her background paper, and that's not a hole cut out of it. What she has done, and you can see this if we examine her layers, is that she's got a shape here, and she has attached a paper to it, and she has another shape, and she's attached another paper to it. So see how by reverse engineering a layout, we can really figure out how to create this magic? So if I hide this paper here, you can see that this is just, and then actually hide both of these, you can see, in this case, I look like a circle. Maybe she meant it to be a circle. It's an oval shape here that she's attached a paper to. So instantly sort of creating this interesting effect. Then she added this round shape, which is basically a thick bordered circle, and added another paper to it, and voila. And because she added the shadows to it, it gives the appearance that this is raised up off the page, which is what fooled me and thought we were looking at a cutout. So let's see if we can recreate this. Okay, let's go ahead and create a new Elements document. By the way, this is Photoshop Elements 2024. This would work in any version of Elements that you're using. I'm going to say File, New, Blank File. And I'm going to tell it 12 by 12 or scrapbooking. In the US, there's a preset scrapbooking. If not, just type in 12 by 12 inches or whatever your preferred size is. 300, always want 300 resolution. And this is going to create a white background for us that works here, and say OK. Let's just maximize this so it's taking up my entire screen. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is pull that background paper in. That's from my Garden Within collection, mega kit. So let's just go and pull that. No, that fence paper is a solid. Here it is. And so I'm going to click and I'm just going to drag it on top of the Photoshop Elements icon on my desktop here. Now you notice it did not put that paper in my existing document. That is one thing that's different with Photoshop and Photoshop Elements is every time you open a document in Elements, unless you're using the place command from the file menu, what you open is going to open up in a new window. So if we come up here to my new document that we created and I say to show the photo bin, we can click and drag this paper up. I'm going to click and then hold down the Shift key and click and drag it to the center of my document, and it'll put it up there for me. The other way you could do that, if you don't want to bother with the photo bin, everything that you open in Photoshop Elements is going to show up as a separate window here in the photo bin. If you don't want to bother with that, I could have just come here and then clicked on the paper, and then holding the Shift key, could have come and clicked and then dragged over until my mouse is over my other document and then let go. Now I've got 2 copies of it, but you could have done it that way as well. Let's just get rid of this because we don't need it. So step 1 is done, and now if you recall, and we hide these, she has got her, let's hide this one too. So we're only working with one thing at a time. She's got an oval, thinking maybe she was trying to draw a circle, and I'll show you what happens if you when you're manipulating your tools here, you could actually end up with a different shape than you wanted. We're going to come to the shape picker. It is this it's going to look like a star on your menu, and when you click on that, you'll see the options for the custom shape tool will come up down here in the options bar, and I'm going to choose the ellipse one. That's this circle right here below the star. And if you hold down your Shift key and then click and drag, you're going to get a circle shape because the Shift key tells Elements that you want to constrain the proportions of what you're drawing to actually make an ellipse. Now, if you were not to hold down the Shift key, you'll see that this is when you're going to get an oval. So I expect what happened is this, maybe, and I'm just guessing, maybe Evelyn really did want to draw an oval, but if you hold down the Shift key, I have not released my mouse, so I can still hold down my Shift key, and when I click and drag again, it's going to continue to constrain the proportions, and I'm going to click and drag. I noticed her circle was quite large. I'm going to click and drag, and you're going to see what happens is here. I want this really big, and so now I'm going off the edges of my document. Now, if I continue, I have not released my mouse. If I continue to hold down the Shift key and then use my thumb to hold down the space bar, I can now reposition my circle where I want it to be. And I think that's probably as big as it needs to be. Maybe let go of the space bar and then drag just a little bit, still holding down the Shift key. Here's the little trick to making sure you get your circle. You always need to release your mouse button first and then the space bar to get the circle. Let me draw that again, and I'll hold down the Shift key and then click and drag to draw my circle, right? Now, if I were to let go of the Shift key before I let go of my mouse, watch what will happen. I'm going to end up with this oval. I'm assuming that's probably what happened to Evelyn, and she may or may not have wanted that. She may have decided just to work with it rather than redesign it. But if that ever happens to you, that's why. Always release when drawing a shape. If you're trying to constrain the proportions, always release your mouse first and then your Shift key, and you'll be fine. So let's go ahead, and this is where we need it to be. And then she clipped, if we look here, back on her page, Evelyn clipped one of the floral papers, one of the pattern papers. So let me come back into Elements and come into my Mac Finder, which is the same as Photoshop Elements. Same as the Microsoft Windows Explorer. And let's look for the pattern papers. I believe she used number 9. So once again, I'm going to see, even if I hold down my shift key and click and drag this on this paper, which is something you could do in the full version of Photoshop. It's why I'm showing you in Elements, just in case you're more used to working there. It's opened up this new document. So we're just going to go back to my untitled document here. Oops, I guess we're going to go back to this one where I actually drew the circle. And then open up the photo bin and click and drag. Hold down the shift key, click and drag my paper up, and now you see it's covered everything, and that's because I need to attach it to the shape that I've drawn. I'm going to do that by coming up to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and I wanted to point out that there's almost always multiple ways to accomplish the same thing in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, and you see here that not only can we use the menu to do that, we can use a shortcut key, which would be to hold down the Option key or Alt if you're on a PC, Command and G to do that, or we can hold down the Option or Alt key and then hover the mouse in between the shape and what we want to clip to it, and you see that the cursor changes to a square with a down arrow indicating we're going to perform a clipping function, and then just click once in between, and now we've attached our paper to the circle. So the next thing that she did is she found a circle shape that has a little bit of an inside border to it. So let's come back into my document here, and I'm making sure that I'm clicked on this paper layer here, and I'm going to go look for the shape that she might have used. So coming back to the shape tool, and this time we want instead of the ellipse, we're going to look at the custom shape tool, because when you click on that down arrow, you get a big menu. See if I can make this bigger for you. You get a whole bunch of shapes that are already built into Elements. And I'm pretty sure she used this one here. So I'm going to select that. And then once again, I'm going to hold down my shift key and start to draw my shape. Now what it's going to do is it's going to draw the shape in the same color as my foreground color. That's why I ended up with a teal one before. If you want to draw it in a different color so that you can keep track of what you're doing, you can go ahead and come to the color picker and choose something. Let's choose black, just for grins and giggles here. So remember, I'm going to hold down the shift key and then click and drag out my shape. Now I'm going to need to make it as the same size as my circle, and I also want to position it properly. So while holding down, still not having released my mouse and holding down the shift key, I'm going to reach with my thumb and hold down the space bar, reposition this, and keep clicking and dragging until I get this into the position that I need it to be, so that it's just, boy, this is pretty big, just so that it is about close to the shape and size of the circle that I've already drawn. Now I think that's as close as I'm going to get, so remember what we want to do to make sure we're constraining the proportions. I need to let go of my mouse first and then the space bar, and now I have my sort of circle frame. And let's see on Evelyn's page what she did. She attached, it looks like this yellow paper. So we'll come back to my document here. Oops. This is, remember I told you, remember all these papers opened up in new windows. We don't need it, so we can just close that one down. So coming back into here, I'm in her document, need to come back in mine. Let's come back to the Finder window and let us come back to the solid color papers. And I'm pretty sure it's this yellow one here with a slight pattern to it. Consider those solid because they really act as a grounding agent. They do have a little bit of pattern, but they're not really patterned. So I'm going to click and drag this onto my page, knowing full well that it's going to open up its own document. Come to the photo bin, open up my document here, my own document, click and drag, holding down the shift key so it centers it. It brought it in beneath my ring frame, I guess we could call that, and we know that we want it to be above it, so drag it up here, drag it on top, come on, cooperate. Okay, let's do it the other way, drag that below. More than one way to skin a cat, right? And then come up and say, well, that's a nasty visual, sorry, didn't mean to say that. Come up and say, image, create clipping mask, And now, voila, we've created our cutout. Now remember I said what Evelyn did to make this look even more realistic is she put a drop shadow here on her ring layer. So if we look at that over here, if I open up the effects panel, we can see that she did a lighting angle of 1/16. It's a size 40, and she's got a distance of 22 and opacity of 48. Now, I'm too old to remember that, so let me just show you another trick in case you don't already know it. If you're working with something that you want to copy a layer style from, I can right mouse click, hover over the layer, and say copy layer style. And now I can just come back. Oops, don't need that one. Come back here and making sure I'm in her document again, making sure I'm on my document and on the ring, I'm going to paste that layer style. And so now I've got my shadow. Isn't that really cool and simple? And just to show you, why don't let's close this document we don't need. And let's come over here and show her, let's just copy her group. Let's just make her group of elements visible again, and let me duplicate that over to my page and see how close we came. I'm going to right mouse click on the group name, or you could come and say, I believe we could say layer, duplicate group. You're going to get a dialog box saying where do you want to duplicate it. I want to duplicate it, obviously I did mine right on my paper. That's what we were working with. So I'm going to say OK here. You could actually duplicate it to a new document, but we're going to put it on the file I've been working with and say OK. And now it takes it a second to copy all that. Then come back and take a look and see where it put it. It even put it in the right place. Well, what do you know? So she also had some other elements here in the center. Let's go and do that. I believe she had them right above here, above her circle. So let's just target this layer and then come back to her group 2. This time I'm going to do the same thing, but as I said, always more than one way. Right mouse click and say duplicate group. Again, from this dialog, choose my own document. Come over here, see if it put it in the right place. It did, but it's hidden. There you go. So you see how easy that was, how deceptively simple it was to recreate this look, and how using just this small little technique that wasn't difficult to accomplish, you're able to really add additional interest to a page that might otherwise be considered busy. But because we've added this circle cutout, a parent cutout, it really has tamed the page down, given your eye a place to rest, and actually drawn more attention to your focal image. Pretty clever, huh? It's so easy, right? I'm going to leave a link for you to Evelyn's layout in the notes below. Maybe you want to take a closer look or leave her some love. I know she'd really appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave me a thumbs up if you like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss my other tutorials. We'll see you next time.